Welcome to Zvia Weight Loss and Medspa. Let's talk about something so many of us notice when we look in the mirror. Those expression lines that, well, they just don't quite match how we feel on the inside.
It's that little disconnect, right? That feeling when you're totally calm and at ease, but your reflection is maybe telling a slightly different story to the world.
It might be that crease right between your brows that kind of makes you look frustrated or concerned, even when you're feeling great.
Or maybe it's the crow's feet that suddenly seem to show up in photos, or the forehead lines that have gotten a bit deeper over the years. And for a lot of people, it's those vertical bands along the neck that you never used to see. It's like your face is telling a story you didn't write.
But here is the really good news. Those lines are not skin damage. They're actually caused by specific muscles that have been contracting thousands and thousands of times. And that's where XEOMIN comes in. It's a purified neurotoxin injectable, specifically called incobotulinumtoxinA, that very precisely addresses those muscles. And what's really unique about it is that it's the only one commercially available that's free from complexing proteins. It's just the active molecule.
Okay, so let's get into the science just a little bit. Every single expression you make starts as a signal from a nerve to a muscle. At the spot where they meet, that's called the neuromuscular junction. The nerve releases a chemical, and that release all depends on a very important protein called SNAP25. And when those contractions happen over and over for decades, they fold the skin, creating those creases that eventually become visible even when you're not making an expression. Down in the neck, there's a thin sheet of muscle called the platysma that can separate and contract as we age, and that's what creates those vertical bands. But the science to address this is incredibly effective. In clinical studies, 93.1% of patients, that's a huge number, achieved a measurable, noticeable improvement when the treatment was at its peak effect. So how does it actually work? How does XEOMIN create this harmony with such precision? It all comes down to how this naked neurotoxin works. It starts when the incobotulinumtoxinA molecule binds directly to the nerve terminal. So here's what happens. First, it binds to that nerve terminal and gets inside the cell. Once it's in there, it selectively snips that SNAP25 protein we talked about. Now, without a working SNAP25, the nerve can't release its signal. The message is blocked. And what happens? The muscle just relaxes. It isn't damaged at all. It's just temporarily and very precisely interrupted. Right, and this whole process, which is called chemodenervation, is completely reversible. Your body is amazing. Over the next 3 to 4 months, it just regenerates the SNAP25 and the full connection comes back online. That reversibility is actually a fundamental safety feature of the treatment. And this is where the formulation of XEOMIN really sets it apart. In nature, this kind of molecule exists in a large complex, surrounded by extra accessory proteins. But the technology used to make XEOMIN removes all of that, leaving only the active molecule. We're talking about a 6-fold reduction in size. That's why people call it the naked neurotoxin. It's just the pure ingredient that does the work. So why does that matter for you? Well, those extra proteins can actually stimulate your immune system unnecessarily. In long-term studies, patients who were treated only with XEOMIN showed absolutely zero neutralizing antibody formation. For anyone planning on years of maintenance, that's a huge deal because it supports consistent, reliable results over time. Okay, so we've covered the science, but what does someone actually experience after a treatment? Let's walk through the journey.
So in the first week, what we call the opening, most people notice the initial smoothing kicking in between days 3 and 5. Then, during weeks 2 through 4, things are building momentum. Day 30 is really the peak response, and that's when we see that incredible 93.1% responder rate. This is usually when people start hearing things like, "Wow, you look so rested." Finally, the crescendo phase lasts for months 2 through 4, where you just enjoy those sustained results. A gradual return of movement simply lets you know it's time to schedule your next session.
So once you have these amazing results, what can you do alongside the treatment to really maximize and extend them? Honestly, sun protection is number one. A consistent SPF 30+ is probably the most important thing you can do to preserve your investment. Things like an antioxidant-rich diet, quality sleep, and even stress management practices can also make a big difference, helping to maintain collagen and reduce that habitual tension that causes furrowing in the first place. These are ways to get even more from what your treatment is already doing.
So what areas can be treated as Zvia? This is where the precision science meets expert application. That's the Zvia difference.
The entire upper face is now FDA approved. In fact, as of July 2024, XEOMIN is the first and only neurotoxin approved for treating all three of these areas at the same time: the glabellar lines, the forehead, and the crow's feet.
And what about the neck? Well, those platysmal bands are also commonly treated, showing a 100% responder rate at day 14. Now, this is an off-label use, which is why the expertise of your Zvia provider is so essential. They'll know if it's the right choice for your specific anatomy. And that really gets to the heart of it. Your Zvia provider looks at your specific anatomy, your muscle size, your strength, any asymmetries, and treats your face and neck as one single integrated system. That is true precision. It's not a template. So if you're seeing expression lines or neck bands that just don't feel like you, it all starts with a simple conversation with your Zvia provider. They'll design a plan that's perfect for your face and your goals. We'd love for you to visit us at www.zvia.com, that's zvia.com, or you can just call us at 303-902-5353. Schedule your consultation with the Zvia team today.
And just a reminder, this is educational information. Your Zvia provider will work closely with you to determine if this treatment is appropriate for your individual needs.